communication needs to improve. And if you noticed, I always stutter when I speak because the thought is not clear. And
Mhm.
I heard writing will help you to clear your thoughts.
Yes,
And
absolutely. They go hand in
oh,
hand. Let me give you a tip on the verbal communication and the stuttering. I used to stutter as well, and I used to be terrified of presenting. Like I used to sweat a lot whenever I have to present something. When I was a kid, I was so shy that I couldn't even go order something from a store because I was afraid to talk to people.
yeah.
The only way to overcome that is like exposure therapy. You just need a lot of practice.
Hmm.
And usually, as a designer, if you, especially if you have imposter syndrome, you're kind of in this position where, like, if you have to talk to somebody that you perceive to have a higher authority than you, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like exercising, right? You want to start off easy and slowly ramp your way up. So, for example, you know, if you go into any job now, it feels like everyone has a higher authority than you. This isn't true, but it's like your perception. So you're gonna have a hard time communicating with them. So what you do want to do is, in my opinion, and how I got into mentorship and teaching in the first place is the best way to learn is to teach. And the best way to practice communication is to teach somebody and ideally mentor somebody that for lack of a better word, is in a position of authority lower than you because you feel more comfortable, right? Like if you were talking to like a little kid, would you get nervous? Probably not, right? Versus like if you're
Right.
talking to like a super senior CEO
Hmm.
that's like 20 years older than you, you'd be more nervous, right? It's all
Hmm.
perspective, even if you had to say the exact same thing.
Right.
So, you know, like design is always a spectrum. Like it's not like a linear thing where seniority is like super, super strict. Find like small things that like you're really confident in terms of your knowledge, teach it to somebody else and mentor them. And then start off with people that maybe either are younger than you or have less experience than you and slowly work up to like wider range of different people.
Right.
And eventually you'll kind of develop that confidence and become more
Hmm.
articulate. So that's more high level advice. In
Right.
terms of more tactical advice, what you want to do is you see my hands, like I do a lot of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
motions. I use this to draw attention, right?
Right.
Like when I'm talking to you, if I can't think of something, I don't say or or pause or stutter.
Right.
Like you can use pauses very strategically to build suspense, also to emphasize certain words. For example, so you pause there, there's a little break. Most people, when they talk verbally, they talk way too fast. Even right now, I'm talking like maybe 1.25 times faster than I normally do because,
Yeah.
it's a 1 hour session and I
Right.
don't want to waste your time. But if this was like a 101, that's more casual, not toned
Yeah.
down, or like even an interview, you can talk a lot slower. Use your hands to kind
Right.
of draw
Yeah.
attention,
Yeah.
illustrate, and kind of create like more visual interest.
Right.
And then you want to pause strategically between sentences, If
Hmm.
you really need time to think, be like, you know what, that's a great question. I don't want to just like rush out an answer. Give me like 20 seconds to kind of formulate how I'm going to respond to this.
Right.
Perfectly okay. And recruiters and interviewers will respect somebody that has that self-awareness. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah.
Helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's verbal communication. Written communication is very different. There's two kind of modes of communication, right? Like there's the first mode is like you want to optimize for the transfer of like knowledge or context. So you don't want any filler words. You want everything to be like very crisp. And what I usually do is like I look at every single word when I'm editing, like, does this word add value? If it doesn't, I just remove
Hmm.
it, right? And then for specific words, like you need to look at them and see like, is there a better word that provides more value or is more specific? You always want to be as specific as possible with your words. This is for mode one, by the way. And a common exercise that I do is anytime I stumble across a new word, it's not enough to just look at the definition of that word. You need to look at the synonyms and make sure you understand all the synonyms for that word as well. For example, a lot of the times, or like a big weakness in a lot of people's writing, is they use a lot of words interchangeably, meaning like in their mind, like these 10 words mean the same thing, but in the actual English language or in reality, all those words have very subtle differences. All those words are very specific and can be applied a little bit differently. So when you know a word and all its synonyms, you can be more intentional about which exact word that you use. So I always look up a word in the thesaurus as much as possible and try to just keep a mental note of like the exact definition, because like English is weird, right? Because it's combined from a lot of languages. So there's a lot of redundant words, which is true, but there's also a lot of words that have very subtle differences. So you want to get a sense of like what those are and how to use them. So that's one piece. And then there's also like the concept of flow, which is like the flow of your arguments. So when I write something technical or I'm writing in mode one, I always assume that the reader has zero context, like assuming they know nothing about the topic. And it's almost like a house. You can build a foundation and like teach them, like give them the background knowledge, give them the context, give them the definitions, and then create your arguments on top of that foundation. You can't just be like, this is my argument, this is why. It's not enough. You have to kind of ease them into it, right? Um, that's one piece. Another really big tip is when people do a lot of technical writing, all the sentences are extremely long. You want something called like rhythm, which means like you need to alternate between like short, medium, and long length sentences. That makes it like less exhausting to read. Because if you've ever read like a scientific paper, every sentence is like 3 lines, and like you just like lose your kind of trail of thought in the middle of a sentence because it's so long. So if you need to have a long sentence, like that's usually gonna be your most important point. You want to sandwich it with like short and medium sentences. Um, so it kind of like almost gives like the reader's brain like a rest leading up to and after it, so they have time to like process and digest it. Um, some general tips, I can go super advanced with like writing. It's something that you just have to practice daily. One thing that you can do is pick one new topic to research daily. Try and like pull from multiple resources, and then instead of taking like notes, try and like write in full sentences, like you're trying to summarize um, everything. But it's like not enough to just summarize. You need to also form your own opinion as well. So this is actually a reading technique called syntopical reading. It means like to pull and reference from multiple sources and form your own opinions. So that's like the best way to practice writing in the more technical sense. I can't really give you too much advice on creative writing, at least not right now. But if you follow the advice I did and just like make it a habit, like what I'm doing right now is I'm forcing myself to write 500 words every single day. And
Yeah.
actually, it sounds a lot, but it's actually really easy. It takes less than 20 minutes. If you have no distractions, just read a source of information, read multiple sources of information on one topic, highlight the keywords that jump out at you, and then literally copy and paste the keywords into a document, order them so they make sense, and then kind of like craft your kind of like your arguments or your flow, your perspective from that starting point. Never write without an outline. Just always kind of have like a direction and goal that you want the reader to arrive at. So I just talked a lot. Does that make sense? Was it
Yeah.
helpful? You
Yeah,
might need to listen
definitely.
to this a couple times.
Yeah, I think it's super